Hi Romlie, thanks for being here today. We might just start off by asking you if you can tell us about your vision for the Lowitja Institute International Health and Wellbeing Conference to be held in Darwin in June 2019.
For me, the vision is twofold. One is about going back to Darwin, which was where the origins of the Lowitja Institute were, but more importantly, it is about building on what we know as Indigenous peoples around creating Indigenous spaces to define and discuss the sorts of things, the futures that we want as Indigenous peoples.
First Nations Solutions for Global Change is the theme of the conference. Why is this a focus and how will the conference address this theme?
It's a focus because there's so much that's said about Indigenous peoples across the world, which is laden with deficit. What it does is it maintains a kind of post-colonial view of Indigenous peoples. So what we want to do is to really reframe all of that, and what we're doing quite specifically in the theme is to say that not only do we have value as Indigenous peoples globally, we have a gift to the world, really, to the future of the planet.
So Romlie, what do you hope the conference will offer delegates and sponsors?
You go to conferences and I don't know about you, but for me, the first thing that I do is to look around for the other black faces. Yes. Now that's a phenomenon that is experienced by Indigenous peoples the world over. So you're looking for your own people to kind of, work out where the connections are. When we overpopulate and create these Indigenous spaces, we don't have to do that. What comes with that then is a whole set of discussions that are understood and an understanding that we're there to support each other. So that's the Indigenous delegates. The non-Indigenous delegates are a little bit disrupted in that space because it feels a bit, and it is, very different. And what that does is, in a very natural way, provides for others to reflect on themselves rather than continuing to reflect on us. So that self-reflection is fundamental to changing systems. For sponsors, sponsors should understand the value that working with Indigenous leadership can provide to themselves and to their organisations. The companies that do well are concerned about equity, they're concerned about the environment, they're concerned about their corporate social responsibilities.
Romlie, you've already shared with us some of your thoughts, but can you tell us a bit more on why these events matter to us as Indigenous peoples here and around the world?
This is a place to connect Indigenous people and non-Indigenous people, to connect up together and share that journey together. We're absolutely clear that we're committed to a strong cultural program, and that can manifest in many different ways. So honouring ancestors, traditional owners, their culture, their contemporary practices, all of that will be interwoven, and it will be as critical as having the discussions about research and the academy.
Why does it matter that organisations such as Lowitja Institute hold this type of conference?
Well, because only we can. Black leadership or Indigenous leadership the world over is a different kind of leadership. Simultaneously honouring and being responsible to our ancestors, being true to ourselves right here and now, providing investments into the future for our future thriving, really, not just surviving. You do that best through Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander organisations and through our leadership, not as a bolt-on to mainstream events.
So Romlie, the 2019 conference follows the success of the inaugural Lowitja International Conference, which was held in 2016. Do you envision Lowitja Institute hosting international conferences in the future?
Oh, absolutely. People are still raving about the 2016 conference. What I'm really looking for in holding this conference in Darwin is to have a strong view to strengthening relationships with Indigenous peoples of the Western Pacific and into Asia. India has over 100 million Indigenous people. It's a massive family that we have in India that we haven't even explored, not to mention Myanmar and Vietnam and and Japan, for example. So those relationships are going to be really critical to in developing this broader Indigenous community.